Many believe a long read is simply a traditional newspaper article sprinkled with some pictures and a few interactive features. But that's far from the truth. A multimedia long read has its own structure. It's designed to pull the reader in and keep them scrolling, watching, reading. It's not text first, visuals later. The piece is planned from the start as a multimedia experience. Let's take a look at Bust Out, a project by The Guardian. It is one of the most compelling examples of large-format investigative journalism. Any strong piece of content needs two wings to fly: story and format. Both matter. A flashy format won't rescue a weak story, and a powerful story, poorly presented, won't reach its full potential. That's why, in this analysis, we'll look at both. What is the project about? For over 3 decades, city administrations across the United States have been using a curious strategy to reduce their homelessness statistics. A homeless person may be given a free one-way bus ticket, supposedly to rejoin family or friends in another state. Yet for all these years, no one had systematically evaluated the impact of this approach, until the journalists stepped in.
And our goal was to really understand what effect these bus programs were having on the homeless population in America. Cities, of course, would say that these programs are a really great way to offer people more stability. It's a way to reconnect people with family or with friends in other locations and perhaps offer them a route out of homelessness.
18 months of research, a data set of over 34,000 journeys, a team of 18 reporters, videographers, data analysts, and visualization experts. I printed the project out, makes it easier to analyze. A great way to study other people's work and structure your own. Think of a long read as a layered drink. Each paragraph is a complete thought, a separate ingredient you're adding to the glass. You must consider, what exactly are you trying to say or show with each one? The project starts with a short video, a clear headline, and a bit of context to set the scene. The composition works like a swing, back and forth between personal stories and the big picture. I'll highlight the general context sections in green. Personal stories will be in orange. You'll see the pattern. The opening video shows a wide shot, an overview. Next, we meet Quinn Raber, a homeless man traveling from San Francisco to his hometown, Indianapolis, on a bus ticket provided through the scheme. Personal story, orange. His journey could have been told with just text, or maybe just a big number, 2,275 miles traveled, but look at the visual approach authors chose. Even for Americans, it's hard to grasp how far Indianapolis is from California. So the map format doesn't just give us distance, it sets the tone and invites emotional engagement. A long journey on a bus. Then comes a clever use of scrollytelling. The personal story turns into a choropleth map. The darker the color, the more homeless people per 100,000 residents. Again, this could have been presented as plain text or a table, but the map creates a logical bridge between the paragraphs and paints the trend clearly. Next comes some phenomenal data journalism. In terms of format, it's a blend. Bubble chart, flow map, timeline, histogram. The team tracked actual bus tickets issued under this scheme. One person, one journey out of the city.
Well, while cities would say that these are a good way to help people get out of homelessness, there really isn't very much long-term research that testifies to that. So for instance, we spoke to the city of San Francisco and requested data from them, and they provided many years data going back to the 2000s. But for instance, for a 5-year period between 2010 and 2015, when the city offered thousands of people bus tickets and thousands of people left the city could only provide us records showing that it had been able to follow up with only 3 of those people to find out if their situation at the other end had improved.
General context, marked in green. Then we shift focus again to individuals. 2 reporters from San Francisco waited outside the local social services office for several days each week to speak with people applying for the tickets. They phoned over 700 ticket recipients to find out what had become of them. 35 personal stories were collected. In 2 cases, reporters joined homeless passengers on their journeys. They also interviewed program managers and homelessness experts. Take a look at how the project presents video quotes. We're used to text quotes, still images with captions, or direct-to-camera soundbites. Personal stories equals maximum proximity in both form and meaning. But it's a video, not a still. The person is looking at you, but not speaking. Their lips don't move. You're reading their thoughts, not hearing their voice. In the next video quote, same format, a former shelter worker defends the policy. He says it's necessary to prevent the shelter from becoming a travel agency. 2 contrasting perspectives. Up close, deeply personal.
It's very, very difficult to afford somewhere to live. So that's what's really driving the trend. And I think that the picture that is in the background here, and that's been a constant element of the homelessness crisis in the US, is a long-term federal underinvestment in affordable housing, something that was really begun, these cuts in the Reagan era, and in the opinion of advocates, has never really been properly redressed since then.
Next chapter. Not all journeys were by bus. Nearly half the data came from New York. And 20% of the tickets there were for flights. Wide shot again. An arc diagram shows the international spread.
And New York was really idiosyncratic in the sense that around 600 people were being sent on sometimes expensive plane journeys across the world. In fact, the longest journey we found from New York was a homeless person traveling to Wellington, New Zealand, of all places. And it also sent around 2,500 people back by plane to Puerto Rico.
Where did these people actually go? And did they have any real opportunity to rebuild their lives? Or were they just being sent away? This graph shows destinations by average income per capita. Are people going to more prosperous cities? No. The data shows most moved to more economically depressed areas, with fewer opportunities. Big picture, green. Then back to an individual story. Orange, who's supposed to be waiting at the other end when a traveler steps off the bus? At the center of this chart, parents and children. Then siblings and grandparents, then friends, then institutions, churches, sponsors, and so on. These receiving parties are named in the agreements. But what happens in reality? Rose Thompson went to live with her daughter and became the 8th person living in a small trailer. She found herself back in a shelter. The core question of the investigation: how do these bus programs affect homelessness?
We found cases where people simply became homeless at their destination. In some instances, they even became homeless again in the city from which they had departed. So the story really isn't quite as simple, and it really isn't quite as rosy a picture as cities would portray.
The wide shot. Here's how many people were sent away. The close-up. The story of Quinn Raber, with whom the piece began. The composition loops back to him.
I saw him off at the bus station, and then a couple of weeks later, I spoke to him on the phone. Things weren't going so well in Indianapolis. And then almost about a month later, after he left, I spoke to him and he said, I'm on a bus back to San Francisco. Things didn't work out in Indianapolis. My friend entered a drug addiction program, the friend that I was staying with, and I just had nowhere to stay. I was homeless again there. And so today, Quinn's situation is almost exactly the same as it was before he took the bus. He's dragging around a suitcase on broken wheels. He's trying to find poles for a tent that he found to sleep in. And he's living back in San Francisco in almost exactly the same location as he was before he took the ticket.
Context and data. Wide shot. Personal story. Close up. Context and data. Wide shot. Personal story. Close up. This rhythm, this pendulum motion, is what gives the long read its emotional weight.